the mysterious, the macabre, the out of this world. The following are real people. They have real stories, and they've had real encounters. Here tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks. Tonight to Encounters. I am so excited. Tonight is a super duper special Encounters. Not only do we have Jerry with us tonight for Encounters, which is just unheard of. Welcome to Encounters, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have an amazing guest, and that's the reason Jerry's here. Jerry, tell us all about our guest.
Well, if the universe is teeming with billions of planets, question for you, where is everyone? Today we're joined by an author, speaker, and researcher who is tackling Fermi's Paradox head-on. In his book, Where Are the Little Green Men?, he introduces the Adair Hypothesis, arguing that while simple life might be common, building an advanced technological civilization requires an incredibly rare chain of cosmic, geological, and energy coincidences. Please welcome to the show author and founder of the Fusion Star Project, Dr. Terry Adair.
Terry, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here, man.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity.
We talk about all things mysterious, macabre, and out of this world. And when we got the opportunity to talk to you about your book, Where Are All the Little Green Men? Just had to have you on. So I'm glad you took time out of your day. I know you're a busy man, and to come on and join with us and just talk about some of the ins and outs of what's going on in your book. So you have a lot going on. You have Where Are the Little Green Men? Your newest book is Earth, the Goldilocks Planet. And we're going to definitely talk about your nonprofit. We want to talk about that. We'll save that to the end so we can really dig down into it. Tell us and tell the listeners a little bit about the Cliff Notes version of your book, Where Are the Little Green Men?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I appreciate you noting that I do have a pretty full schedule because I'm a working, get ready for this, oral and maxillofacial radiologist. Now, I even have to slow down a little bit for myself to say that because that's a tough one to wrangle with. So what is
I wouldn't even go try.
What is an oral maxillofacial radiologist? I am a dentist. I practiced clinical dentistry for 26 years, and I went back as a 55-year-old resident to specialize in oral and maxillofacial radiology, which is a specialty within dentistry. And like other specialties that you may be familiar with, everyone knows the oral surgeon and orthodontist. You have to be a dentist in order to go into oral maxillofacial radiology. So now I'm on the non-clinical side, and I write reports from dental CT scans. That's part of what I do, but I'm able to do it remotely. So I'm often asked, how do you go from dentistry to chasing aliens?
I'm sure.
I want to know that myself. And it wasn't a gigantic leap. It was incremental, like a lot of things in life. You know, part of this evolution, I live at Lake Tahoe, and I'm into sort of the multi-sport lifestyle. I'm an Ironman triathlete, and I like being on the water. So I spend a lot of time with myself, which opens up just a lot of opportunities for thinking about these types of things. And so it has been an incremental evolution about thinking about our own energy needs, and we're going to get into that in a lot of detail because that's kind of the heart and soul of my book if you've had an opportunity to glance through it. Talk about energy and how it relates to our own planet and how we leverage the available energy on our planet to the advanced state of technology that we have. And for people who wonder, are we really that advanced? I say we are. We are a remarkably advanced civilization. Where we are right now, and I'd like to get into to some of these ideas a little bit later, we are literally flirting with everything the universe has to offer us, which is really remarkable. Some of the scientific discoveries that are going on right now, particularly in physics and astronomy, and the kind of the very, very small and the very, very big of our universe, is really remarkable. And we're only able to do that because of energy. And that's kind of the heart and soul of the Adair Hypothesis. I don't want to get to that until we discuss the Fermi Paradox itself and what that is and what that means to people. I think that's going to be the sort of the foundation of my book, because it's the Adair Hypothesis. And then once we get into the Fermi Paradox, then we can kind of branch out into the other tentacles of that. So you gentlemen are probably very familiar with the Fermi Paradox, but if you'll allow me to describe it to your listeners, for those who may not be familiar with it, or they've heard of it, maybe haven't kind of got it pinned down. The Fermi Paradox is the same paradox that we all have. There's not a person who hasn't looked in the night sky and seen a sky full of stars and imagined there must be other life out there. It's impossible to not think that. Because what we see out there, those stars, they're suns just like ours. And we're just one planet around one sun. And the numbers, even when Fermi sort of offhandedly posed his question, his famous question, where is everybody, 70 years ago, the amount of stars that they imagined that were out there is dwarfed by what we know now. In the last 70 years, the number of stars hasn't grown. They've been there. We've just realized there's far more out there, and the universe is far more populated with stars and galaxies than we even imagined 70 years ago. So those numbers are even bigger.
Terry, one of my favorite advancements that human beings has done in the last 25 years has to be the James Webb Telescope. The pictures and the galaxies and the sheer mass of everything out there that it's taken pictures of, that Hubble on its best day could only take a small portion of, just blow me away. Just blow me away.
Isn't that remarkable? And you're exactly right, because what it does is it's kind of visually shrinking our universe. And it's bringing things in closer and closer to us. And that's where we're able to see the enormity of the universe. 2 trillion galaxies. The human brain isn't equipped for that. I mean, we hear that number, and we hear that now people are trillionaires. And so somehow it sort of shrinks that number. If someone has $1 trillion, well, that is a remarkable number that even though you hear that on a daily basis, none of us can imagine that number. Now, that's the number of galaxies. And within those galaxies, some are smaller, some are bigger. Let's just say ours is sort of medium size. 400 billion stars. So if you take 400 billion stars, there are some galaxies that we already know that contain 1 trillion stars. So some are more and some are less. But we're just saying if you have an average of 400 or 500 billion stars per galaxy times 2 trillion galaxies, the numbers are so mind-boggling we can't even imagine that. So if we focus, as Fermi did and Frank Drake did, just on our own galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, which is 100,000 light years across. Again, it's a number we can't really wrangle with. And we'll get into that and kind of shrink it down a tiny bit the best that we can. But if you think of those numbers, the number of potentially habitable planets, even with our own Milky Way galaxy of approximately 400 billion stars, is still a very big number. And so the Fermi Paradox is this. The Fermi Paradox is we know that there are hundreds of billions of potentially habitable planets out there. Now, before I make this next statement, I am going to qualify it a little bit, because I know that some of your guests have been on here, or other guests you've had, or your listeners have reported, they've had encounters, they've had sightings. I'm not here to take away from that at all. That's your own experience. I don't take away from that. I have a different angle, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But the organization SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, that's an institute that's around 60 years old right now. Their position is they don't have that. They haven't had the type of technosignature. They don't have, let's just say, a taxidermied little green man in a crashed UFO in the Smithsonian. They don't have that. And so their bar may be a little bit higher. And so the paradox is thus. We expect life out there. We have no actual scientific evidence of it. That's what the paradox is. That what you expect and what you see are different. And so it bears the name Fermi because, as I mentioned earlier, he's a particle physicist. And if those of you who follow subatomic particles, the group of particles that are known as fermions bear his name. That's where they came from. So he was not an astronomer the way Frank Drake was. But obviously, you can't be in any one of those fields and not be interested in the other end. The very big and the very small are connected in their unique physical way. So Enrico Fermi in a lunchroom in the early 50s just kind of offhandedly asked, where is everybody? And so that stuck. And so the paradox of what we expect to see and what we really do see, it bears his name. Later, about 10 years later, Frank Drake came along, and he was a radio astronomer. And it was his idea to point a gigantic radio telescope out to the sky and try to hear a signal. Because he reasoned that, well, we've been sending out radio signals for, well, that was in the 60s, so let's just say 80, 90 years at that point, right? So we're sending out radio signals. You can't stop them, right? It's not like you can shield it. So when we communicate, those signals go out into space. Some are obviously stronger than others. If you talk on a cell phone, that's not going to go very far, right? But if you're broadcasting radio waves and they're high enough wattage, those waves are going to go out into the cosmos, out into the ether. And so the expectation is if someone is doing the same thing, those will come to us. And we'll be able to distinguish those from what we consider just normal background noise, like the cosmic background radiation. So that's what Frank Drake reasoned. And so that was the first effort to deliberately try to find what we now call a technosignature. That it must be coming from some sort of creature and not just natural background noise.
Wouldn't
and so
it be
those
terrible?
two kind of go hand in hand. Oh, no, go ahead. I'm done there.
I was just going to say, wouldn't it be terrible if alien ET shows up and says, "Hey, take me to your leader, that guy that sings Achy Breaky Heart"?
You know what? This is my opinion on that. He wouldn't necessarily be disappointed with that.
Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
And that's
Crazy
a good point.
to
Let's
think
talk
that
about that.
that's-
What does... That's a possibility. What does ET look like? I've done a lot of thinking about this. And my conclusion is not just a wild guess. And I try to make each of my ideas based on the science that we know. It's not out there based on just a whimsical thought. First of all, I can almost assure everybody that whatever that creature is, he's carbon-based. And there's a reason for that. And I don't necessarily need to go into the chemistry and physics of why that is. But almost for sure, any life out there, intelligent life, is going to be carbon-based. And again, there's a very specific reason for that. And it's not a coincidence that when we have found quote-unquote life molecules, amino acids, and some of the nucleic acids, they're carbon-based. That's not an accident. There's a reason that they are. So when we've harvested organic molecules from asteroids, comets, Mars, they are carbon-based. And almost for sure, ET, if I'm allowed to say ET.
Sure, absolutely.
Some prefer not to use the word alien. I'm indifferent to that. But we'll just stick with ET because, I mean, what's cuter than ET, right?
Right.
Everybody knows that, and so we have common ground. It's the notion that some advanced, intelligent life form comes, knocks on our door, and wants to listen to Achy Breaky Heart. That he wouldn't be disappointed. So ET almost for sure will be carbon-based, and I'm going to go a step further. He'll be very similar to us.
Really?
He may or may not be green. But ET will be similar to us. And there are very specific evolutionary reasons why that will happen. None of these things, there's a convergence of this. Nothing starts, nothing is spontaneously created fully formed. Everything evolves incrementally over time. That's just a mandatory requirement. And so we have to refocus what our expectations are of ET and advanced intelligence is, not based on what Hollywood presents us. Hollywood is indifferent to that. They're there. They do what they get paid to do, entertain. They don't have to be factually correct. And the reality is most of the stuff that happens in the science fiction movies is not factually possible. Not necessarily impossible, but it's highly constrained. And that's what I do in my book, is take a realistic approach to what is possible. And again, it does not, my position is not that there are not little green men, but there probably aren't as many as we might think there are.
Terry, one of the things that, and you're right, some of the things that we talk about here leads us down some pretty good rabbit holes. One of the rabbit holes that you bring up that you feel like they would evolve into something that looks very similar to us. One of the things that we notice here on Earth, especially in sea creatures, is that the tendency is for them to all start to evolve into a crab-like, that apparently the crab is the apex of what they can evolve into. So you don't think that would be more apt, or do you think that two legs, two arms would be a better scenario? Didn't know that was coming, did you?
Dolphins are... I love that. Dolphins are smart. Dolphins are considered... In fact, the bottlenose dolphin is now considered to be number 2 behind in humans in their intelligence.
That's awesome.
They'll never... They don't want to go to the moon. They don't know how to play chess. We can't send them to dolphin school and make them understand calculus. So there are constraints on that. It's not that they don't have a dolphin professor. There are limitations on and they're constrained on their intelligence. So intelligence is not something that evolution even aspires to. Evolution has one goal only: reproduction. That's it. So all of these features that have evolved incrementally over time, they become layered. Think of the Wright brothers plane. Okay, if you and what's remarkable when you have energy, you can open up a lot of doors, and that's what my Adair hypothesis is. I don't say things are impossible; they're highly constrained. If you can demonstrate a plausible energetic pathway over time, anything is possible. That's the key. That's what people assume exists throughout the world that doesn't, throughout the universe, I should say. The energy is not out there like people imagine it to be, and that's what the Adair hypothesis is sort of structured around. But let's focus on the intelligent part of it. Dolphins can't be made to be smarter. If you took two other very common animals, the shark and the crocodile alligator, right? They've been around for hundreds of millions of years. And we might look at them and think that they're sort of stagnant, that evolutionary, they're at a dead end. I disagree with that. I think that what they have done is they're at a pinnacle of success. If you consider the crocodile, for sure, they eat mammals. They don't need to be smarter. They are at their pinnacle. They have accomplished. They have a proven track record of hundreds of millions of years. So the goal is not intelligence. In some ways, intelligence is a bit of a fluke. And you're going to hear this a lot tonight, and it's one of the things that I believe that sets my ideas apart from what other people are saying. We're constrained by energy. And once you have energy, then you can explore. Nature, DNA, has an opportunity to explore and do other things because there's an abundant supply of energy available to them. And so all of the diversification that we see in flora and fauna are a result of that. And so I'm going to state Adair Hypothesis and go back to where that came from. It's an incredible story. I haven't really heard it told like this, in this way, and I think that's one of the things that sets my approach maybe a little bit different from others. The Adair Hypothesis states what I touched on just a second ago, that no advanced civilization anywhere can emerge without two energetic pathways. And I believe that these are preconditions that are more or less absolute. And here they are. The two energetic pathways that are preconditioned to advanced civilization are one, planetary. Your planet has to have an abundant energy for everything to grow. Mother Nature doesn't throw MacGyver out there and say, oh, go figure out a rocky planet. That doesn't happen. Intelligence does not evolve on a rocky planet. Intelligence evolves in an already formed, highly sophisticated biosphere. So humans didn't come first and everything else came later. No, all of the beauty came first. All of the flora and the fauna were here before humans, before that level of intelligence could ever evolve. So the one is the planetary energetic pathway, is you have to have something where life can start and life continues and can evolve. The other one is the civilizational pathway. Once you have intelligent life, there must be energy for them to build a civilization. There has to be. And all of those came from one thing, photosynthesis.
Really?
Photosynthesis is what gave Earth all of the energy. It gave us the planetary energy for everything to grow and evolve, and, not on purpose, it stored, I know people are going to hate me for this, it gave us what we're dependent on, and this is the absolute truth, and I'm open to any discussion on this. It only is possible on Earth because of coal, oil, and gas. That's where we get our energy, 100%. We are 100% dependent on coal, oil, and gas. We have thousands of years of fairly advanced civilizations who did remarkable things, but they all ran into the same wall. They ran out of wood to burn. That was it. That's where their fuel came from, wood.
That is one of Jerry's...
And you can only grow...
I was just going to say, that is Jerry's big thing. We talk all the time. Jerry, first of all, I bought a plug-in hybrid and it blew Jerry away. He's like, what? Because he is the electric car guy. He's like the
No, I just think it's a long-term solution.
Right. But he always says, we have to get better on batteries. We have to get better on batteries. Our batteries have to be better. We don't have an
energy problem. We have a storage problem.
Right. And that's exactly what you're saying, Terry. So you guys are of like mind on this.
Well, I think we may differ on that, which is fine. It's completely okay, because batteries don't create energy. Batteries only store energy. That's all they do. So a battery doesn't make your car drive. The battery didn't make the electricity. It's just holding it, and it's not that great at it.
It's horrible at it. That's the problem.
It's not a criticism of battery cars. It's not a criticism. And Jerry, I love what you're saying. It's not. None of those are the problem. The problem is the same thing that people ran into in the 1960s when they imagined we'd be flying around in Jetson mobiles. Physics hits back. That's the problem. So it's not that batteries are bad, inherently bad. There's a limitation. We're almost at the absolute best. Well, we have graphene ahead of us. Graphene will change that a lot. But you're at least in agreement with the idea is your civilization must have an energy source. So all of the ancient civilizations burned all the forest. Most of Europe was deforested.
Wow. Easter
They cut
Island
down the
is
trees
another good
for fuel
example.
and for both. And so Greece, it never grew back. It used to be a lush, green mountainous area, but it didn't grow back the way a lot of Europe did. And so we needed to cut those trees down as a source of fuel. And if you think about that first ancient man, we controlled fire maybe starting 1 million years ago, which is, again, it's a number that's hard to put your brain around. But let's call it 400,000 years ago. People like us, maybe a little bit hairier, but just like us, feelings like us, families, moms and dads and kids, were able to control fire and start their own fire. And that was the first laboratory of humans. That was the first outside energy source that had ever been. That changed us more than anything else. Yes, language is important, but language really largely followed that. It changed our ability to live life in a way that other animals didn't. We could heat our food and we extract more calories out of them. It gave us protection from predation. It extended our day by giving us light source at night. And so this first outside technology, fire, changed humans in a way that no other animal ever experienced. And it led to our intelligence in large part because we're able to get more calories out of the food.
I read that fire, in right along with the lines of what you're saying, fire was the main reason that we were able to stay awake at night without fear of being hunted. And in doing so, we didn't go outside the fire because we were still food. So that gave us a reason to develop our language and develop our storytelling and our the beginnings of our tales that we would weave that would become the foundation of our very speech. All because of fire.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, thank you. And to just build on that slightly, because you're exactly right. That's when we really started to develop this knowledge that we passed along. And that was a beginning. Again, this is something that sets us apart. Is now you can accumulate knowledge and pass it along. And so we had ceremony, the storytelling, all of this created a focal point for civilizations to grow. None ever did it without that. And that was very basic. But the trees that are around you are limited. And as your society grows and you are successfully reproducing, your demand for all of the resources, not just for the fuel and the energy, but the food that you consume. And so you're more and more successful, and then you have to cut down more forest to clear it for the crops that you grow. And so all of these puts demands, and there's a limit to what photosynthesis can give you. And so the civilizations were all limited. They were big, and the people were remarkably intelligent. If you told me to figure out how far the sun is or what the circumference of the earth was, I couldn't go out and figure it out. But people did thousands of years ago, okay? So it wasn't lack of intelligence. They had a lack of energy. If you look at the Roman architecture, and the Indus Valley was even more remarkable because that's a little bit further back. They had very, very sophisticated civilizations with running water. They had indoor plumbing with constantly running water. They had fountains, and they had bridges and roadways and built remarkable buildings. And so the intelligence was not the problem. They were remarkably intelligent. It was an energetic limitation. And once we discovered coal, I'm going to tell you guys some things that are going to be pretty shocking. Once we discovered coal, it was an energy multiplier.
Oh, I
Most
agree.
people right now could probably reach into their wallet or their credit card and have $100. I don't know what the price of oil is right now, but it's probably around maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less than $100. Okay? If you are able to go buy with $100 a barrel of oil, the energy equivalent in there is astonishing. If anyone has gotten on a treadmill at their club or a strider or a pedal bike or whatever, and you look at that little meter, you can comfortably put out about 75 or 100 watts. Now, if you were to do that every day for 2,000 hours, that's considered a normal working year, right? You got a 2-week vacation, 8 hours a day, 2,000 hours. That's 10 years of that in a barrel of oil.
Wow.
Effort.
I have a question
That's
for
the
you.
force multiplier that fossil fuels gives us.
Terry, I have a question about fossil fuels. If fossil fuels are the launch pad for a technological civilization, what do you think happens to a species that reaches after the planet's fossil fuels are gone? Are they permanently trapped, or do they have escape routes that we haven't decided yet or discovered yet? Because at some point,
I've got that answered very, very well.
Yeah,
yes.
Humans are going to run out of fossil fuels.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And my second book, Earth, the Goldilocks Planet, touches on this a little bit more. Although, Where Are the Little Green Men definitely touches on it too, because it's the bridge to our future, and it is the only bridge. Because energy is absolutely essential. There's no way to do it. You can't build an advanced civilization without some type of energy. On our planet, it happens to be fossil fuel. And it was a gift of Mother Nature, unknowingly, of burying trees and phytoplankton for hundreds of millions of years for us to discover later. Now, let me give you an idea of what amount of energy we've used right now. Most of us have had the experience of pulling up to a train crossing right when the arms are going down. And you have a doctor's appointment on the other side, right? We've all done that. And the bars come down, the lights are flashing, the bells are clanking, and you see this clank clank, a coal train going across in front of you. So you know it's going to be a mile or a mile and a half long. And you have to start to wonder of the amount of energy in that coal. It's going to go someplace and do something for us, right? If you consider for the last 120 or 140 years since the Industrial Revolution, let's call it 200 years, the Industrial Revolution, we have burned the equivalent of fossil fuel, meaning coal, oil, and gas. We have already burned that equivalent of a coal train that's 93 million miles long. It would go from here to the sun. We've extracted that out of our planet. That's how much we've used. And so your question is, are we going to run out? You're darn right we're going to run out. Because we're not making new coal, oil, and gas. Well, gas, yes, not coal and oil. But gas does have, bacteria do make gas. But the main part of it, the coal, oil, and gas, does have, there's a limit what's in our Earth. Okay? And so think of that. That's what has taken that much energy to get us thus far. A 93 million mile coal train is what we've burned, and we've released that CO2 into the atmosphere in 200 years. So there's consequences to that. And so the coal, oil, and gas will run out, and this is how it's going to happen. We, and anybody would, we're picking the low-hanging fruit. Now, some of the coal, oil, and gas is deeper and deeper and harder to get. So that means two things. Spend more money and or more energy. But there is a point that energetically it takes more energy to retrieve than, so it might as well not be there. You see what I'm saying? Because
right.
You can't get to it. We can't get it all out. Just because it's too far in the ocean or wherever it may be, there's physical constraints. And so here's the estimation, and I've done a lot of research. I wish I could give you a number. Maybe between 300 and 700 years. But we have something in our back pocket. And this is what will carry us on indefinitely. We have nuclear energy. That's one of the things that makes our planet doubly remarkable. I don't have to tell people to go build nuclear power plants or nuclear fusion. They're doing it already. There has been a strong, strong headwind, unfortunately, against nuclear fission. And if you gentlemen are familiar with the differences of nuclear fission and nuclear fusion, they are different processes.
Right.
And the interesting thing is they both do the same thing. Boil water. That's all we can do. You can't extract any other energy out of them. And that's one of the keys to what I hope we can talk on later if time permits or interest permits. Because there's an assumption that energy is just everywhere, right? It's just all over the place. We just need to pick it up, and there's probably some man or group of bad men somewhere in a hidden secret lair who have all this energy they're sitting on, making us buy coal, oil, and gas. I'm sorry to disappoint you, that's not true. Because the types of energy that we need, that we can convert into work, are known and limited. Coal, oil, and gas is what made us get this far. So, does photosynthesis happen on other planets? It better, because you won't have it without it.
I have a question for you in regards to energy.
To answer the question...
Oh, sorry.
What happens when... Oh, go ahead.
Well,
let him finish. He's going to finish answering that question.
Go ahead and finish, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a quick, short thought. So the question is what happens when we run out? And I want to confirm two things. One, we are going to run out. We will. We can't keep doing this. Not only will there probably be environmental consequences, how big, how bad, how soon, I don't know. But there will be some, for sure. But a more serious problem is we will run out. And so the bridge is nuclear fission until we get to nuclear fusion. Now, nuclear fusion will provide us more or less indefinite amount of energy that it's almost inexhaustible. And so we're going to be fine. We will get there, but we have another important issue. We can't kill ourselves off in the meantime. We will get there. Our energy can be assured if we can continue on our same trajectory. And I have some great news regarding that. So the fossil fuels got us this far, and we will need to wean off it and eventually become more and more reliant on fission energy, which I do want to talk about a little bit, but I know you have a question. And then ultimately, the nuclear fusion will not only ensure long-term stable energy for the entire planet, it'll get us to the stars. And that's where I want to go.
Okay, so you opened about 73 questions for me right there because I always think all the time.
Good.
So, Jerry sometimes they're like, what are you talking about? Anywho, so a couple of things about energy. Nuclear fusion and fission are absolutely on the table. What about the energy that, and you even mentioned it, that somebody's hiding energy from us. What about some of the, and again, our show goes deep down some rabbit holes, and I apologize. So if I'm way off base, feel free to correct me.
Let's do.
You're not going to hurt my feelings. But 0 point energy, as an example, is something that Nikola Tesla showed that is viable, is a real thing through his Waldron Tower in New Jersey. And every single time, actually was researching this today, that someone has some sort of magnetic power, or 0 point energy where they put in very limited and get out those all seem to disappear. For whatever reason, as soon as they request a patent, the government shows up, they go away. And also, a more maybe realistic, Jerry's shaking his head at me, a more realistic thing that is happening in Japan and other countries in Asia, they are harnessing the very ocean current as a form of electricity that is it's not affecting the environment in any way, shape, form, or fashion. It basically, from my very rudimentary understanding, it just sits out there and moves with the current, and that move generates electricity. Are those viable, or are those just a Band-Aid, do you think? There was a lot there. I apologize.
Good question. That's a great question. Those are all good. I love this so much. I appreciate the opportunity to share my ideas on that. So what you're talking about on Japan is very real. It's 100% real. I would like to make one small correction there.
Sure.
What powers that generator in Japan is not current. And this is an important distinction because I like where you're going with this. And it's important to try to utilize those types of sources where we can. It's actually osmotic pressure. Because what you have fresh water coming in to meet the salt water. And so it's an osmotic pressure. And so that is, all energy works on a gradient. Let's take the most simple one that we can think about. Height. You have water up here, and you have a turbine down here. And you take that water, and you utilize the gradient difference, the gravitational potential energy of going down a penstock, right, and turning a turbine. So that's a great one. You can imagine that there's limits of what nature provides you in terms of you have water up here and you can put a generator down here. Very
millstones is a good
example. And the times that we make that work, millstone is a great one, and I want to come back to that because that's such a good example. And so nature provides almost no opportunities like that. In almost every case, do you know what we have to do? Build a dam. Do you know how popular dams are? Real
Not very.
popular.
I used to live in Idaho. They're not very popular at all.
Energy's not like.
I said I used to live in Idaho. They're not very popular.
Energy doesn't lie around someplace. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. And so the opportunity for water being up here and freely flowing downhill in a large amount that you can harness to supply readily available 24/7 energy, it doesn't exist. So you have to build a dam. Same with the example you're using in Japan. It's a very uncommon natural occurrence. You can't build that and retrieve the amount of energy you can get out of it because the output is very, very small. It's hundreds of homes per year.
Gotcha.
And so that doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. Plus, the maintenance on that is pretty high. And so it's not scalable. The answer is, in the case that you're talking about in Japan, it simply is not scalable. That's
Gotcha.
what it is. So let's talk about our first use and discovery of a flowing river. You have a river coming down, right? Let's just say it's an artesian well, and water comes out the same amount all year round indefinitely. It doesn't change. Well, if you're using a mechanical wheel, you can't harvest all the energy anyway, right? You can only harness part of it. The rest of it just flows away. And once you've used that energy, it basically stops. And so it can turn a mechanical pulley, and you can transform one energy into another type of energy and extract work out of it. And so those are great. And we learned a better lesson is to create the universal currency of energy, which is electricity. So we've been able to use that idea of turning a wheel and actually spinning a turbine and collect that. Now you can use that energy to turn an actual electric motor, you can heat things, et cetera, and so it's a little bit more useful. Here are two things that happen not just on our planet, everywhere in the universe as far as we know. And the deeper we go into our understanding about the laws of the universe, they seem to be pretty rigid. The universe is rigidly transactional. It doesn't just give things away. And so here are the two laws of thermodynamics. One is energy can neither be created nor destroyed. The universe is considered a closed system, and as such, all of the energy is already contained within it. All you can do is capture it, transform it, store it, transmit it. You cannot create your own energy. Every source of energy can be traced back to its original source, and all of those sources of energy come from the four fundamental forces of the universe. Again, these are rigid. This is not me saying this. This is where we are in our understanding of the physical world. Everybody knows one of the fundamental forces, gravity. That's the fundamental force. Meaning it's of its own self. There's nothing other part of gravity. That's one fundamental force. The other one is electromagnetism. They used to be considered two, electricity and magnetism, but they're essentially the same, different manifestations of the same force. Gravity, electromagnetism. The other two people will never guess unless you know. That's the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. All of the energy comes from those four forces. That's it. And so all of the energy of the universe is already there. All we can do is harvest it. Now here's the second law. The second law of thermodynamics is the law of chaos. People know that already, right? That any closed system will tend to disorder or chaos, right? That's the second law of thermodynamics, also known as entropy. But that's only partially true. That's only a partial understanding of the law of entropy. The law of entropy is stated another way. It is the cosmic pickpocket. Energy wears a cape. Energy builds your civilization. Energy helps grandma across the street. Entropy wears a bandit's mask because entropy is a thief. He's the cosmic pickpocket. Every single time energy changes from one form to another, entropy charges the tax. Every time. There's zero exception to this. And what this says, The universe, not me, the universe forbids a perpetual motion machine. Forbids it. It cannot happen. And I know that every few years the water engine makes a comeback. It doesn't make a comeback because it works. It makes a comeback because the next generation of people don't understand thermodynamics. If your house is on fire and the fire engine comes up to your house, do you know what he puts on the fire? Water. You know why he puts on water? Because that kills fire. There's no energy in water. The only energy possible in water is potential energy if it's up here and you need it to go down there. There's no way to collect heat or energy out of water. It's the end of the reaction. If you burn methane, the simplest hydrocarbon, pardon me. If you burn methane in the presence of oxygen, you get two things. You get CO2 and water. Water is dead. It has no energy in it. There's no such thing as a water engine. So as much as they sound great, there's no such thing as one. The universe forbids perpetual motion machine. It doesn't forbid perpetual motion. Our Voyager is a great example of that. It's been traveling, 50 years now, or however long it's been going out there? And later this year, it will be one light day away. And it's traveling on perpetual motion. And Newton told us it will keep doing that until it bumps into something. So perpetual motion is fine. But if you try to extract work out of it, it will eventually stop. And so perpetual motion can happen. So my point of these two laws of thermodynamics, the amount of energy in the universe is fixed, and two, perpetual motion is forbidden. So we have to find a source of energy that we can convert into work. So without being able to extract an energy that's readily available to us for work, we have nothing. We have the coal, oil, and gas. We do have nuclear fission, and unfortunately, this is what we have to deal with, and we must overcome this, and I think that we will. Nuclear fission was built out of warfare. That's where it came from. And the initial reactors weren't for civilian power. They were breeder reactors. And they realized that, there's a lot of waste heat here. We could boil water with it and generate electricity. And so that wasn't the intent of them. And so our early reactors, Chernobyl, 3 Mile, those weren't built necessarily for civilian energy. They were built for warfare. And I understand, I don't want them either. And the reality is that you have to use your uranium, and they breed plutonium. Those are the most efficient reactors. And we don't want that. Nobody wants that. And so that's why there's a lot of resistance. And then there's a real misunderstanding about the risk and hazards and dangers of nuclear isotopes. They're not friendly. They have to be managed, but they can be managed. And so the old nuclear reactors are just that. They're old. The technology is so far advanced. And we don't even need to build those gigantic ones that we used to. We need to build the small modular reactors. And thankfully, it's happening right now. Through President Trump, this is not an endorsement of President Trump, so I want to make that very clear. I'm just saying that now he has sort of fast-tracked these small modular reactors, and they're finally going somewhere. This is not a problem of physics or technology. This is 100% policy. This constrained us. So now they've just permitted a lot of them. And in Idaho, they have this fantastic nuclear plant there. That's where the first civilian electricity came from, nuclear reactor in Idaho. And so now we're starting to get the portable, well, they are portable, but you don't move them around. You can build them in a factory and take them someplace, if that makes sense, right? Rather than building these gigantic ones with these. When you see those big cooling towers, that's not the reactor. The reactor is in another building nearby. Those are just cooling towers. So, but they're still massive and gigantic. We don't need to do that anymore. We need to build these small, portable, built in a factory.
The differences between nuclear fusion and nuclear fission, and the fact that the 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, those were military, not civilian reactors. I think that we really want to push that narrative because I agree with you. That is the way of the future. And if we can change one mind through the course of this podcast that nuclear is not a bad thing, I think that's a good thing to do. What do you think?
I agree. And that's part of, and I'm not necessarily
right.
jumping into Fusion Star Project right now, although
Sure.
I hope we do talk about it a tiny bit.
Absolutely.
But my nonprofit is based on that idea, is energy literacy. And the two headwinds that we're going up against right now is the fact that nuclear fission was born out of military purposes. And that's very real. And I understand that. And the other one is that radiation is dangerous, and it is dangerous, but it's completely manageable. And the newer reactors are far safer than the reactors that are 50 and 60 years old. And so if we're stuck in the mindset that we're going to build reactors the way we did 50 or 60 years ago, understandably, there could be a concern. But what we've done is we're evolving our knowledge, and it's not that we didn't know back then. The goal still for 50 years is to breed plutonium. We don't need to do that now. And so the newer reactors, especially the thorium reactors, don't have a military grade type of breeder process in them. And so they don't give you the plutonium. And the smaller reactors are just that. They're smaller, so they don't have as much of the radioactive materials in them anyway. So we do need to sort of change public minds that this, in answering Jerry's question earlier, it's not an option, people. It literally is not an option. Are you and I going to run out of fossil fuel? No. Our grandkids aren't going to run out of fossil fuel. Humanity will run out of fossil fuel. It's unstoppable. That is going to happen. There's not another energy source out there. And I'm going to talk about that because I want to make this very clear that the Dyson Sphere is not a solution. It simply is not. It was born in the Kardashev scales, and the Dyson Sphere was born out of the hubris and the swagger of the early 1960s. And believe me, it was earned. We were traveling the speed of sound. We were going in orbit. We split the atom. This is all true. And we're at a period of time, if you could imagine it, you can achieve it. Unfortunately, physics hit back. And we suddenly learned we're not building a flying car anytime soon. In fact, right now, everyone watched the Jetsons. I know that you two watched the Jetsons, right?
Jerry especially. I think he was helping write them.
And there's two things we wanted. A flying car. So we wanted flying cars, and we wanted Rosie the robot. Sure. We're going to get Rosie the robot first. And do you know why we don't have Rosie before? Energy. That's what it is. We didn't have batteries big enough or good enough to have a portable robot. We do now. That's what's going to give us the technology of a sophisticated robot who can do the types of things that we want. The flying cars, no, physics doesn't allow it. It's not because we're not smart enough. Physics doesn't allow things to move around like that. Jets and rockets can move things around. We can't drive a jet or a rocket to the 7-Eleven. It can't be done. And so what we're going to have are drone-like personal craft. They're going to fly drones, basically. That's what we're going to get. That's going to be our Jetson They're going to be giant fans. So it's not going to be some secret, something or other exhaust coming out the back. That can't happen. That's just the physics of it. It's not because we're not smart enough. Physics doesn't allow that. And so we are going to have those two things. Finally, after 70 years, we're going to have Rosie the robot, and we're going to have a personal craft that we can fly down to the source. So that will happen. The Kardashev scale, no. You can't harvest all of the energy of your sun. And here is one of the big misunderstandings, is the sun only emits the sun emits a broad spectrum of various types of energies. But most of it you can't harvest. Let's talk about the particulate matter. The particulate matter is mostly protons. Protons are shooting out at near the speed of light. They're very, very high energy, and they're extremely dangerous. They will kill people. They will kill living creatures because it's harmful to the DNA. That's a type of radioactive material you don't want to be near. So cosmic rays, the particles, the alpha particles, the protons, the beta particles, those types of particles are very harmful. And do you know what protects us from that? Our magnetic shield. That's where the aurora borealis and aurora australis come from. They come because when they interact, when those high energy particles, not all of them are, some of them are photons. The gamma rays and the cosmic rays are photons. And there's a whole spectrum of photons, and we're going to talk about each of those and how we can use them. And so of all of these energies that come from the sun, particular energy we can't turn into work. It's harmful. And guess what? When the solar flares, we protect our satellites. It's not just flesh, it's actual machinery. Those high energy particles are damaging to our machinery. And so some of them, it'll knock the satellite out. That's a great point. And thank you for bringing it up. And so that's a great example of what I'm trying to share is that, yeah, it's energy. There's no question it's high energy, but we can't harvest it. Energy only works on a gradient, high to low. Everything transfers. And so to get useful work out of it, you have to stick something in between that. Does that make sense? Our earlier description of a dam, you're putting a turbine in the middle of that flowing water. That's how you're extracting the energy out of it. Okay, and so this idea that the sun provides us unlimited energy, it provides us a lot, and I'm going to go back to that because this is the core of my idea. But a lot of the energy that comes from the sun isn't harvestable and can't be converted into useful work. That's a very important distinction. And so the high energy particulate radiation that comes from the sun is only harmful to us. The next ones are the actual photons. So they're high energy waves, electromagnetic waves. Those are the cosmic rays, the gamma rays, the X-rays, UV, visible light. So this is all part of the spectrum. If you keep going to lower energy, you get to radio waves. Radio waves are great for transmitting rock and roll. But you can't harvest that energy out of a radio wave to do work. There's a very narrow spectrum, and it's not a coincidence. That spectrum is visible light, and guess what we can do with it? We can do two very important things. One, that's what powers photosynthesis. The 400 nanometer wavelength to 700 nanometer wavelength is where photosynthesis works. It's amazing that we have that, but guess what else? It's what gives us solar panels. That same wavelength gives us photosynthesis. We can harvest to create electricity, to generate electricity from those wavelengths from the sun. Here's the beauty. Most of the sun emits its energy in that band. So you have the high energy we can't use, we have the low energy that we can't use, we have that sweet spot, which happens to be most of what the sun gives us. But there's a trade-off for all of that. You can't build a solar collector around the sun like was conceived with the Dyson Sphere. The sun, these numbers are big, the sun contains 99.8% of all of the mass of our entire solar system. 99%. So you have 99.8. So you have 0.2% of matter. How are you going to build something around the sun with that? I mean, it literally, honestly, why doesn't anyone push back on the Dyson Sphere? Why is it me saying this? Why do I have to be the one telling somebody who came up with this idea 60 years ago, no, your idea is fanciful, it's impossible? Now, that doesn't mean, and gentlemen, we will need this, that doesn't mean we can't put solar panels in space. We will. We will need to do that to use the moon for manufacturing. We will need that to manufacture in space. We have to do that. But we can't cover the whole sun. So the idea of capturing all the energy of your sun is fanciful. Most of the energy is not harvestable, and what is comes in a limited spectrum, and it has a maximum known output that can be captured. We can't go beyond that. And here's where entropy comes in. You put something out in space, it gets all of those harmful radiation. It doesn't last like it does. You think that a solar panel disintegrates soon on Earth? You put it on space. It doesn't have the atmosphere. It doesn't have the magnetic shield. It doesn't have the the ozone protecting it. It's fully exposed to those harmful radiation. And so putting panels up in space is doable, yes. And we will need to do that because we must go to space if we want to continue and go to the stars ourselves. I fully support that. But I'm speaking from a physically grounded reality. Let's build within those constraints and recognize them, and don't pretend that we can build a shield or a collector around our sun. That can't happen. I'm sorry, Dr. Dyson. I respect what you did contribute, but that one won't work.
Just the sheer length of time that they're looking through, because when you look into space, you're looking into the past. A lot of people don't realize that. But if you see a planet, Betelgeuse is ready to go supernova. Probably happened 100,000 years ago. We're just now seeing it. When they look at Earth, at best they're seeing a bunch of lizards running around, so they'd have no real need to reach out to us, right? Am I wrong in that? Explain that process to our listeners, because a lot of people don't realize when we look at these other planets, when we look at anything outside of our solar system, for example, we're looking at directly at the past because of the length of time it takes for those light particles to get to us.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a great observation. And that's one of the hardest things to wrangle with, each of us. That we hear that, but it's hard to really grasp what that means. That our closest neighbor is 4 light years away. So that's more realistic. When they look at us, and there's nobody there, I'll tell you that in a second. But let's just say, for example, that there was a Earth-like planet 4 light years away. They see us more or less how we are right now.
Oh, okay.
So that is still particularly odd, being 4 light years away. Now our galaxy is 100,000 light years away. Betelgeuse is like 700 light years away. So it's not hundreds of thousands of years, but Betelgeuse is 700 light years away from it. So it's still a very, very long way. But that is one of the real barriers. And Richard Feynman says, forget all of this discussion about intelligent life. They'll never get here. Too far, too big, too long. He just hits it with a sledgehammer. But no one's coming here. No one has been here. No one is coming here. He just says it like that. So who's going to argue with Richard Feynman? I still want to play with that idea. I still want there to be that possibility. All right. I'm saying that yes, we can. So can they. And this is an important thing, and this is where I believe it is doable with the constraints that we already have. And nuclear fusion must have a role in this, and this is how it will. We always hear that Star Trek, Enterprise, all these other spaceships have these exotic drives, right? These exotic propulsion systems that will let them travel some fraction of the speed of light. And so our nearest neighbor, sorry to tell you people, wrong star, it doesn't have the right spectral wavelength for photosynthesis to produce complex life. There might be bacteria, there might be amoeba, there won't be anything beyond that. There will not be any complex life. There's no energy on the planet. That's my hypothesis. You can't build something from nothing. Without energy, you have nothing. You'll go nowhere. So, wrong spectrum. We need to only look at stars like ours and find planets like ours, much rarer than you thought. So not every not every star is a potential host for life. That can happen. But let's just say there is one, say 5 or 10 years away. Now we're going to be able to create one of these exotic drives and maybe travel some fraction of the speed of light. Right now, they're putting the maximum about 20%. So if you have a planet that's 5 light years away, that's 25, theoretically, 25 years of travel. A person could do that conceivably, right? Mm-hmm. So that is a possibility. If there was a favorable host star on a favorable planet 5 light years away, that's 25 years of traveling at 20% of the speed of light. I'm excited about that idea. And these ships, we have to get rid of the idea of a small spaceship. No, this ship will be as big as a city.
Right.
It will be kilometers long, miles long. It will be so gigantic. This is largely a one-way trip. It's going to be multi-generational. These people will have a new purpose. What's our purpose? We can fight about that philosophically. There will be enough people who will adopt and want that as their purpose in life. There won't be a shortage of people who will do that. That's not next year or even in 100 years, but maybe a couple of 100 years, because we can't launch a multi-mile rocket ship from Earth. It has to be built in orbit. And that's why I'm saying we will get our orbiting solar panels. We will be able to harvest that. We will take nuclear fusion out in space. We will take nuclear fusion to Mars. We will take it to the moon. And this is where we'll build these giant spacecraft. And our traveling between the moon and Mars, it's a 18-month minimum trip to Mars. 6 months, wait 6 months, 6 months back. Because Mars is a moving target. You can't just drive there. So you have to be in the right orbital sequence to, first of all, join up with it, and then second of all, but now if you can reduce that travel speed, you can travel much more faster, more quickly.
A few things real quick.
So we can do this. So how does nuclear fusion play a role? You've probably heard of plasma drives. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a few things about that. I think that it's really telling for us, and it's maybe a lesson learned for us humans, that Mars, the planet to our left, if you will, is what will happen if we nuclear detonate and start a nuclear war with each other. And if we continue down our path of burning fossil fuels like it's our job, we get to look to our right and see Venus, which is a gas giant, or not a gas giant, but a greenhouse gas magnet that's the hottest planet on the solar system, first. Second of all, I share your excitement with all of that, and you brought and took right out of my words. I was like, well, we can't build a ship like that on Earth. We have to build those in space. That's the only way that works. And I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, so how do you move it then, right? What's the propulsion? So you're probably familiar with the exotic drives, direct fusion drive or plasma drive or antimatter drive, those types of exotic propulsion systems. And here's the key to them. And this is important to stay grounded in this idea that there's not energy just lying around that does that. In going back to the battery car, the battery doesn't provide the energy or electricity. It only stores it. And that's true with all those other three I just mentioned. Plasma drives, antimatter drives. There's not a antimatter mine. You don't go dig a hole in the earth and mine antimatter. You don't do that. Antimatter must be created. Here is the beautiful news about antimatter. We drove it around in a truck for 25 miles.
What?
That is astonishing. Even at this early stage, we've shown that antimatter is portable. It has to be created in a gigantic atom, a proton smasher. Yeah, in CERN, this very year. They have
CERN.
a container. Now, antimatter is a peculiar stuff, this antimatter. It reacts instantly and violently with matter as soon as it contacts it. And so it releases, and I'm going to get to this because I want your listeners to get a better understanding of this energy stuff. It releases a violent storm of quote-unquote pure energy. So antiprotons is what they really are. Antiprotons must be created in a proton smasher, and we get them from CERN, the Large Hadron Collider. We generate them. They're not easy to generate. It's very energetically expensive and financially expensive. But we've created a vessel in which that you can suspend them because they can't touch matter, because they will instantly and violently react and release an enormous amount of energy. It's the greatest potential release of energy. But here's the key. It took more energy to create it then will release. They will be released. Go back to the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy charges its tax every single time. And that's why I'm telling you, the zero energy, that stuff is fanciful. There is none of it's proven. It's just an idea. So, it's fanciful.
Terry,
That's not to say that there's not electromagnetic energy, because you can... Oh, go ahead.
I have two questions, and then I want to talk about your other book, and I definitely want to save some time for the Fusion Project. So, question one that I have, if technological civilizations are so rare, then statistically we may be the first. What does that mean to you? Is that a privilege, a burden, or even a warning?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a great question. I think it's not only a privilege, but it's an honor. It really is. But I also think that it's a tiny bit of a burden, because we have a humanitarian imperative now. And this is very important. We can't kill ourselves. We do have knowledge. We do have consciousness. We have something that's, and I love Brian Cox. I could listen to, I flew to London in January to listen to him speak.
Oh, wow. He's kind of like
That's
Jerry. He's got a butter
I admire
voice.
Brian Cox. And a couple of things. He says a couple things that I mostly agree with. One of them is that we may be the only advanced civilization in our Milky Way galaxy.
Wow.
Now, he may have come to that conclusion the same way, but that's his opinion. We may be it. But time span is so fantastic, there may be some before us, there may be some after us. We have a human imperative, I believe a duty, or if you use the word burden, to somehow take our knowledge, our consciousness, like we have the Voyager, but even bigger, and send it, many of them, out into space, including ourselves. And so there is a bit of a duty there, I think. But it's a privilege, and we must recognize just how special we really are. And that's kind of how I built into my book, is with hope and optimism. I am very, very optimistic that all of these things that we hear about will be overcome. And the large part is going to be energy. Once we're able to have reliable energy, not just for us, because we are a U.S.-centered, country. We think about that, but we have to extend that to the rest of the world. 2 billion people don't have electricity, a quarter of the population. We need to take the power to the people. We must do that first. That's part of my nonprofit. And so we do have that duty. Once we're able to do that, we can focus on our future and humanity's future and taking ourselves to the stars. So yeah, it's a bit of all of those. It's a bit of a privilege and an honor, and a little bit of a duty and burden.
See, Jerry and I were having this we always have dinner right before the show, and we were having this exact same conversation. I don't think that as long as we're being petty and we're fighting over imaginary lines or he said, she said petty stuff and greed that we exhibit as humans, there will ever be a true seafaring race or spacefaring race. Jerry disagrees. He says, hey, we went to the moon without all these other people. We can do it again.
I think it'll take longer.
Yeah.
I think it will eventually happen.
Yeah. And, Elon Musk to me is, we are living in a time of a true, what's the word, Jerry? A true visionary, a true genius, and no disrespect
Visionary.
to anybody else.
Visionary.
Because that man has something special. And he's going to get us to Mars. I have no doubt. His whole company, everything that he's established has been about making Mars a habitable place to live, or at least to begin that process. So, but beyond that, I don't think it's something that we as a broken, fractal little place on Earth is going to be, we're going to have to be united. Maybe AI is the trigger for that. Maybe it allows humans to not do the daily grind of putting food on the table or paying a bill, because now we can free our minds and do all the things necessary. But that brings me to my next question for you, Mr. Adair. And I mean this with the utmost of respect. To do not, because I have had as much, I have learned more in talking to you in the last hour and a half than the last 6 months, and I appreciate you being here. I mean that. But I have to ask a question from a biblical perspective, because it is who I am. In Genesis, humanity itself is described as given dominion over the earth. If your hypothesis is correct, and technological civilization is cosmically rare, does that idea of dominion take on a literal scientific meaning? Meaning, we have been handed stewardship almost no other species in the entire universe has ever been granted that privilege of handling. Because I don't see any world, and this is just me speaking freely, where we and the universe and God all can't coexist. What's your thoughts?
What a coincidence. I just had this conversation last night with some friends. And this is what I told them, and I'll share with you right now. I have a big tent. Everyone is welcome underneath it. Whether you're a creationist, and here, Steve, I want to try to correct this a little bit, because this is a discussion I've heard most of my life. This sort of debate or discussion or difference of opinion of creationism versus evolution is framed entirely wrong. That's not correct. Evolution is indisputable. It's just it's a known scientific fact. Now, before you react to that, hear me out, and I think you'll probably agree with this a little bit more. And this bar is actually a little bit higher. And here's where the debate is. The debate is not creationism versus evolution. The debate is creationism versus abiogenesis. How did life start? That's a harder bar. And honestly, I'm torn between that. Frankly, I am. I grew up in science. My whole mind works scientifically. But the more I get into this, the more I begin to wonder myself. Now, it may be that, and some people postulate this, that a greater power set all of this up for evolution to take place, created the environment under which it could occur, and then evolution occurred, right? And I don't have an argument against that. Abiogenesis is the actual slow incremental process of basic chemistries of life: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, combining together and playing in the presence of energy. Not a bolt of lightning, people. Get that out of your mind. No. It took over hundreds of millions of years of slow incremental changes with a steady supply of energy. You'll never get away from that. And so their belief is that God put the coal, oil, and gas in our earth. And we're using the energy. That doesn't change my hypothesis. You don't build a civilization without it. So whether God put it in there or this is a slow incremental process over hundreds of millions of years, you still need that energy. And we still need the energy from the photosynthesis to live today. You can't live without those two things. And so my tent's big enough to accept that idea. I do lean more heavily toward abiogenesis and the slow incremental changes of chemistry that gave rise to life. But I don't discount your point of view, and I don't just say creationism is wrong. I'm fine with either one of those. My hypothesis blends with both of those.
Well,
now, Brian Cox, who oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that we have proof that microevolution happens. I think that you can't look at some of the things that are of this world and say that didn't evolve here. But on that same flip of a coin, the grand scheme of everything within the universe, that's a big reach. And I'm speaking strictly for me, that didn't have some sort of a designer. That's all. And I agree. I'm in your tent, brother. Trust me. I'm with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't discount it. because it is very complex, and we don't have the answer to everything. But that doesn't mean we know nothing. We know that there are constraints. We know that there are physical constraints. Einstein he set the cosmic speed limit, and massless particles. This is important. Massless particles like photons must travel the speed of light. Particles that have mass cannot. It's prohibited to travel the speed of light.
Wow.
So Einstein gave us the speed of light. I don't know who gave us... Thermodynamics came out of the steam engine. Whoever did that gave us thermodynamics. So thermodynamics, these set constraints, and the farther we get into this, Maxwell's equations, these are locked in. There have not been exceptions to them. And so we do have that, but there's still much that we don't know. And I'm coming from the realm from which we do know. And that's where the basis of my thought is in what we do know. And we do know a fantastic... I mean, believe me, if you want to go down a rabbit hole, I can start talking about quarks and gluons and what holds us together. The fact that we're not actually... You'll love this, Steve and Jerry. Gold is not made of gold.
Wait.
It's not.
As someone who is a gold
like everything
panner,
else is basically energy. It's a frightening thought. I mean, it's really...
I love panning for gold. It's one of my very big hobbies. So you're hitting right in that.
Do you want me to tell you about that?
Yes, please do. Open that door.
Do you want me to tell you? It'll only take a minute if you want to hear about it.
Absolutely.
It'll only take a second. This is remarkable, and this just shows us how brilliant people have been. A Greek philosopher named Democritus, over 2,000 years ago, reasoned, if I have something, let's just say a gold bar, and I keep cutting it smaller and smaller and smaller, I'll get to the smallest thing it can be. And if you use the roots, the Greek roots a in tone, a means not or without, tone means cut. An atom. Democritus gave us the word atom over 2,000 years ago, that if you keep cutting something smaller and smaller and smaller, you'll get to the smallest example of what that is, and that is an atom. That's pretty brilliant. But you know what he didn't say? And he didn't go on to say, and that thing is an atom, and it has a nucleus made of protons and neutrons encircling electrons. He didn't go that far. It took us 2,000 years to figure that out. But as it turns out, that's not entirely true. Because protons and neutrons are made of quarks, and they're held together with gluons. Quarks are fundamental particles like electrons are, meaning that you can't cut them smaller. We don't know what that matter is. But
wow.
97% of quarks are energy. And gluon is the force carrier of the strong nuclear force that holds the quarks together that make up the protons and neutrons. That's pretty scary.
Wow.
And so, believe me, folks, we are an advanced technology civilization. We know a lot. We're talking about the things that make up a proton and a neutron, and those are quarks.
So
we do know quite a bit. So there are oh, go ahead.
So I have a couple questions about that. To be honest, it brings up again, and I've said it 100 times already. We cover some pretty big rabbit holes on this program. What do you think about the hypothesis that we are very likely, two of them, we'll just throw two at you just for kicks and giggles. Thing one, that we are within the eclipse of our black hole, and that's why we don't see people. Or two, it is very likely that our whole existence is that of and this is the one that blows me away because I can't argue against it in any way, that our whole existence is that of a quark or a gluon, and that we are simply a part of a cell of a much larger organism that's going about its daily life and has no idea we are even a part of it.
Yeah, couple of things. As I mentioned earlier, if you can demonstrate a plausible and sustainable energetic pathway, it opens up the window for a lot of things to happen. So that opens up. Have there been aliens here before, or ET here before? Will there be in the future? Yeah, that's certainly possible. Are we part of something even much, much bigger? The answer is even though that sounds like to us, that just sounds like a crazy idea.
Right.
The answer is We don't really know. And so we'll just set it aside until we have more information to either rule for that or against it. Even though it sounds crazy, what we're finding right now is crazy enough, right? I mean, we're finding out some pretty crazy things about our universe.
See, Jerry, this is why I like him. He just takes my stuff. He's not like you. You argue everything that I say. He's like, we don't know. It could be. Terry, we have just a few minutes left. Please, please, please tell us all about the Fusion Project,
yes.
Where people can go to learn more about it. If they need to donate, we have a very generous group of folks that follow us. Please tell us all about it because I think it is very worthwhile. It needs to be out there. Let's hear all about the Fusion Project and where they can get your books.
Thank you very much. I'll make it very simple because I have a lot of content out in the ether right now, but I'll keep it very, very simple. TerryAdair.com. I can't believe in 2026 TerryAdair.com is still available. But yes, so my books are available at TerryAdair.com. So if you're interested in Where Are the Little Green Men, the Adair Hypothesis, that focuses on the Fermi Paradox, it's available at TerryAdair.com. And Earth, the Goldilocks planet, addresses more directly the Drake equation, and it's also available at TerryAdair.com. But right behind me, the thing I'm proudest of most is the Fusion Star Project. The Fusion Star Project is a energy literacy and energy policy initiative. And part of its trademark goal that I have right behind me here is taking the power to the people. And that is fundamental because 2 billion people on this earth, a quarter of the population, have access to either zero or less electricity than our refrigerator uses. And that's a shame. It really, that shouldn't be that way. In fact, what we're demanding of these developing countries is nothing short of energy colonialism. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it's partly misdirected. We're telling these developing countries that they must use solar and wind as their sole source of electricity. Those are backups. Those are alternatives. Those are in additions to. I have nothing against those sources of energy, but they don't give you the base power that you need. You can't build a civilization on when the sun goes down, you don't have electricity or when the wind stops blowing. Those are the realistics. The only reason that those appear to work in our civilization is because we have real baseload power that's available that lets us keep the lights on at night. Nobody advocating for solar energy goes outside and turns their breaker off when the sun goes down. Nobody does. And it's ridiculous to tell other people that they must do that. And so the Fusion Star Project is creating policy that wants to overcome that hurdle. And that hurdle shouldn't be there because that's policy, that's not science. And take the small modular reactors and, more importantly, the combined cycle gas turbines. That's the real stepping stone for us right now. Those are instantly deployable. We can take those to developing cities, developing countries, and deploy combined cycle gas turbines and create them locally energy that they need. And so that's what the Fusion Star Project does.
That is amazing, Terry. We were just starting several years ago, Jerry. We've been doing this podcast a little over almost 5 years now. And I want to tell you this story. We were about 2-3 years ago. We had just changed the people that we produce with, that we go through to promote. And we were just running a test episode. And there was a young lady, and Jerry, you're going to remember this, young lady from South Africa that came on, was chatting with us live via the internet. And she said something to the effect of, I'm so excited to talk to somebody from the United States. It's awesome. I don't know how long I'll be here because we have rolling blackouts in basically one of the most developed countries in Africa, rolling blackouts because they didn't have enough continually. Because she said she didn't buy food for her refrigerator because it would go bad because it was so bad. And if she's still listening to us, we think about you. We pray for you every day. But it goes to what you're saying. South Africa is a developed country. It is not a third world country. It is a, and I'm using air quotes. Please don't crucify me. But it is a civilized country, and they have rolling blackouts for their lack of power. Just is in a perfect example of what you're talking about. There's in today's world, 2026. There's no reason that anybody on in this world doesn't have, who wants it, readily available electricity. It shouldn't be. I will go ahead and say, and I think, oh, there you are. I was just going to say, I think that I speak for Jerry when I say I have learned more in the last 2 hours than I have learned in the last 2 years. Thank you for that very much, Mr. Terry. You, sir, are always welcome to come onto our program anytime. We're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Thank you.
And I am so excited for what you've got going on. And I plan on logging on to the Fusion Project as soon as we get off here. And seeing what I can do to help, because I think that's a worthwhile project.
Absolutely.
Jerry, final words?
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And I would welcome very much an opportunity to return to your show, because I love this format a lot. And I want to piggyback on something you said a minute ago.
Sure.
First of all, fusionstarproject.org is the nonprofit energy initiative. But I'm going to piggyback on something you said earlier. Brian Cox claims, and this is beautiful, I love it, and there's a lot of truth to it. Brian Cox says that the rarest thing in the universe is a tree. And the idea is, and he said this, along with his statement, that it's rarer than gold and diamonds because a living organism produces it. And there's some real truth to that. But I'm going to take his idea one step further. And this is something I'd love to come back to your show to talk about, because I am seriously developing the road to knowledge and consciousness. And it's not what we think. And I believe it is the rarest thing in the universe, because the world probably has lots of life and even potentially photosynthetic organisms. But knowledge, intelligence, and especially consciousness, is the very rarest thing.
I'm excited to have you back. As soon as we get off, don't run away. We will get that on the books. I'm excited to have you back.